Welcome to Japan Spirit. I'm Kawatani Takashi.
And my name is Hang Yin. And today we will feature the second part of our dialogue with Dr. Ise. And he's the author of the best-selling Japan on the Globe series. And the part 2 is about Japanese education, one of the cornerstones of Japan as a nation as well as an economy. And in this book, 世界が称賛する日本の教育 Education in Japan, the world applause. You describe how Japanese style education impacted Ugandan baseball team and baseball team players. And I would like to know, why and how did it impact?
Okay. The story goes like this. A Japanese high school teacher went to Uganda as a member of overseas cooperation volunteers. Okay. And he coached a high school baseball team there. The players, however, they were very lazy, not punctual at all, and with their room just mess. So he started to train them in old-fashioned Japanese way. That is, first clean up the room and be punctual and diligent before baseball skills. But as the boys were trained in that way, they became much better in baseball too. So there is something like magic in Japanese traditional education, which present-day people have forgotten.
You attribute rapid modernization during Meiji period and economic restoration after the last war to education in Japan. And you call it, you use the word 国家100年の計は教育にあり, or literally translated as education builds a nation for the next 100 years. Can you elaborate that at the outset?
As you have said, Japan has made two miraculous economic growth, one in the 19th century and another after the World War II. Let me illustrate the first case, that is in the 19th century. When Japan opened the hard door for international trade under huge pressure of American fleet, that black ships, she was a backward country in terms of modern technology. All the colored nations in Asia and Africa were under Western colonization. So if Japan might have had the same fate if she did not grow richer and stronger in a very quick way. But after 70 years of that, when the International Federation was established in 1920, Japan was one of the 4 council members. As a unique colored nation, that is, Japan became one of the leading nations in the world at the time. This is one of the big miracles in the world history. Okay. How did Japan achieve this miracle? Okay. I would say by education. So many Westerners who visited Japan before her opening to the world recorded their astonishment to see how well educated Japanese people were. For example, a naval officer from Prussia, the current Germany, who arrived in Japan at the end of the Edo era, was astonished to see a Japanese maid writing a letter to her friend. Okay. And in Europe at the time, working class people were not able to read or write. Okay. The literacy rate in Edo at that time was estimated at somewhere between 70 to 86%, while in Britain's major cities, it was just 20 to 25%. Okay. This very high literacy rate made it possible for Japan to acquire modern technology very rapidly.
So people call it miracles, but it's not actually a miracle. There were a lot of reasons for Japan to change like that, isn't it? And those philosophies were penetrated and shared nationwide, not only for the elite group of people, but for the very commoners just around the corner. So there was a huge, what do you call it? You use the word in the book, under soil water, which is below the surface of the ground. So education is running very deep in the minds of the Japanese of all classes. I wonder, that's understandable. She's only one of the major players now. But I wonder how people in the developing or emerging economies can how can they understand this? Because people are very short-sighted for good reasons, because everyone else is very rich. If your resume looks good, they may get a better job in such a short span of time. Salary may increase 50%, 100% overnight. It's in a sharp contrast about the lengths of our commitment. How would you react to that?
Okay, so if you think of, say, farming, you need good soil to get a good crop. So you cannot get good, say, crops overnight.
Right.
So you have to cultivate the soil, taking a lot of days. Okay. So that's the very basis of, say, to build a good nation.
I see. Okay, very nice. To understand this kyoiku or education as a foundation of our country, would you like to quote from Ise-san's book, please?
Yes. Here, this is the quote from Ise-san's book, the first chapter. Children are the treasure of a nation. The first one, it's Kobe University Economics of Education, Kyoiku Keizaigaku. Research to prove the causality between shitsuke disciplines and diligence. Japanese children who are taught shitsuke disciplines and end up becoming socially more successful and earning more. Shitsuke disciplines mean 4 basic moralities. The first one is do not tell lies. The second is to be kind to people. And the third one is to keep rules. And the last one is to be diligent. And the second example, the second quote from Ise-san's book is another one from a Chicago University research by a Nobel laureate, James Heckman. Children who receive high-quality preschool education turn out to have more high school graduation ratio and more house ownership and more income.
How do you compare this research in Japan and the US with Japan's traditional educational system?
Okay, so let me explain first what is a traditional Japanese education system. The main education system in Japan in the Edo era was called terakoya, a private tutoring school where a teacher, typically old Buddhist priests or retired shopmasters or samurais, and they taught a group of 10 or so children at their home. Okay? These classes included from very small children to teenagers. So teachers had to take care of each child on one-on-one basis. And this teaching style was very close to the one used in the experiment of Chicago University. Okay? That where each child was closely monitored and was taken care of by an educational expert. In this way, children learned perseverance, compassion to others. Okay. I think so. There is a huge similarities between the traditional Japanese system and the Chicago University experiment. Also, in the Edo era, there were 16,000 of such terakoya throughout the country. This number is almost comparable to the current elementary schools now. That is 22,000. Okay, compared to the population at the time.
Yes.
So per capita number of schools is much more than today. Compared to this, current schools are just like mass production factories. Okay, where the same lessons were fed to 30 to 40 people at the same speed. Okay, so the educational style now is so different from the past.
But at that time, people didn't have enough food, maybe, in some families. There are some very mountainous villages throughout the town where they don't have much crops to harvest and to eat. Even those poor time, Japanese people gave priority to children's education. like you said, merchant and farmers sometimes, not only samurai classes, open the house for children in their neighborhood. How can Japanese people have it both ways, keeping the daily food and sacrificing their private time to education? Yeah. They are not trained educators.
It wasn't a trade-off because Japanese people at the time knew that education pays off because it is said that there are almost 7,000 textbooks used in terakoya, and they include a lot of, say, agricultural ways.
Oh, those practical ones also.
Right. So they felt that if I educate my sons and daughters, then it would pay off in the long run.
And those teachers were not paid, of course, at all.
No. But they are usually retired people. They have already good library stock. And also, what they got was respect from the community.
He says, you reminded me of my personal experience again. A long time ago, I used to live in one of the Southeast Asian countries. And with all respect to these people, because I heard it from my close friend, my friend was working as a principal of an elementary school in that particular country. And in that conversation, he said, you know, Kawatani-san, how we make our children study hard, how can we do that? Do you know how we do in this country? And then he said, we tell our children, you have to study hard, otherwise you will end up becoming a teacher. So you have to study engineering to make money. So in his opinion, teacher or education is the least respected business in that country. It's again a sharp contrast to what you've just described.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem because the raising human resources is the most important job for the community. Okay, so we need to respect something like that. We respect soldiers because they defend our community, and we need to respect our teachers because they build the basis for our future.
Exactly. Okay. So you'd like to introduce Kyoiku, the book again?
And for our viewers' information, Kyoiku Chokugo, or the Imperial rescript on education, it's the basic educational policy of Japan, compiled by the directive of Meiji Imperial, because he was concerned by the confusion of education brought by the rapid introductions of the Western civilization. And although Kyoiku Chokugo is criticized by some quarters to be militaristic, and its philosophy, it's beyond that and contains universal wisdom.
All right. Here I would like to show you a very intriguing comparison between Kyoiku Chokugo, Imperial rescript on education, and this particular book. It's a quotation from the book called The Book of Virtues. And this is a special book compiled during the President Ronald Reagan administration. And it's a super bestseller of more than 30 million. And I was told that it is based on the very Imperial rescript on education. Would you like to show the points from the book?
The Imperial rescript on education has 12 items of virtues, while the other side, the Book of Virtues, advocate 10 virtues. Okay, the difference in numbers comes from here, this portion. Okay, the first three, and so the rescript tells us to be filial to your parents, be affectionate to your brothers and sisters, and as husband and wives, be harmonious. Okay. On the other hand, the Book of Virtue integrates these three into just one: compassion. Okay. So obviously, the difference comes from the difference between Japanese language and English language. Since the Japanese language has a very rich vocabulary in the field of human relations. So we use different words for compassion when we talk about parents or brother and sister or husband and wife. Okay. So, except this, all the other virtues have almost one-to-one counterpart, okay, between the rescript and the book.
Shall we show the picture of the book?
The book?
Yeah.
This is the book of virtues. Do you have any information that the book is still being used in the U.S. by any way, by some schools or?
Since it was sold almost 30 million, so I think it is still used as a side book.
It's a lot of books. Okay. This kind of information should be known more to the Japanese people. I think very few of us has the knowledge that 10 out of 12 virtues is at the backbone of the book of the virtues. It's very nice.
Actually, when the prescript was established, it was English people in the educational area were very much excited and invited some Japanese scholars to explain this prescript. And they felt that exactly the same way. Okay, so this rescript contains the virtues almost common to humankind.
Virtues common to mankind.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on to Japan today. Since the last war, Japan seems to be drifting about in economy or in moral education and political world. Do you think it is partly due to decaying education in Japan today?
Yes, I think so.
How would you compare that?
This is a simple logic. Since economy, morality, politics, or whatever are done by people. Okay, so if the deterioration of education lowers the quality of people, then again it lowers the quality of economy, morality, and politics. So this is a very simple truth. So our forerunners said, that's why our forerunners said that education builds a nation for the next 100 years.
100 years.
And due to this grave misunderstanding that the Imperial rescript on education was a source of militarism, we discarded it, and in so doing, we discarded the very basis of the nation for the next 100 years.
Exactly. Okay. Right. Here I want to share with viewers that the Pennsylvania University Professor Angela Lee Duckworth's study of self-control and grit to determine how they might impact or predict both academic and professional success. Her research showed self-control and grit or yarinuku chikara led to higher graduation ratio of high schoolers and even West Point Military Academy cadets and the sales staff making more sales. Under those extreme situations, she did a research. Hara-san, can you introduce grit or yarinuku chikara definition from the very author herself?
Yes. Passion and perseverance for a very long-term goals, having stamina, sticking to your future for years, living life like a marathon, not a sprint.
He says, what do you think of a grit vis-a-vis Japanese education?
It seems to me that she just retold what our forerunners taught and practiced. But that's not only in Japan, but also in the West too. As I illustrated a case of the Uganda baseball team, learning perseverance gives you more concentration, more motivation for learning something. Okay, so this is why they became good baseball players in a short period of time. And also learning compassion helps you to build a good teamwork with your friends. Okay.
Well, I think Japanese seems to have a special biological clock inside, which is, I must say, very different from that of the other people that the Japanese people work with in international business, for example. From your European and American and Japan experiences of as a senior management or top management, you were saying philosophy communicates across cultures, and people are the same. Despite your comment, my or rather daily business experiences are telling the different experiences. It's so difficult to make other non-Japanese people, especially coming from developing economies, to understand. You know, business is long term. Don't think in just 1 year you have mastered everything. Give itself at least 3 years to think like that. How can we? There's no solution, of course. Easy advice, of course, here. How can the Japanese people try to transfer or share our biological clock, which is a very important thing, long-term thinking?
I would say by perseverance.
Okay. Okay, our perseverance is being tested then.
Yeah. So
I see.
So people need, say, at least several years to learn something new. Okay. So it's not just a knowledge, but in order to practice it, you need several years. So this is very clear if you think of your, say, children. How many years did they need to learn how to speak well or how to behave well?
And speaking of children, I think your book also mentioned about this. Some years ago, the number of mothers in Japan feels under pressure, raising their children. But recently, the number is even more higher of those mothers feeling troubles raising their children. Patience, perseverance is now being under test of ourselves. Well, viewers, that's a very important lesson, isn't it? Our own perseverance and grit is being tested. If you pass our test, then probably we'll have more people who empathize the Japanese way, in a way. Okay. Thank you very much, Isa-san, once again.
Thank you very much.
I know that you have published already the third book, 3 books already so far.
4 books.
4 books already, sorry. And you're working on the 5th one. Is it too early to reveal your content before publication?
Now I'm trying hard to develop the contents of the new books.
With perseverance.
But, say, for example, when I wrote on management, management depends on people, and it is education to develop good people. And the main spirit of the education comes from, as you said, altruism. Selflessness. And what is the source of selflessness?
Well, we know already what's going to come into his 5th book. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's conclude, but before we conclude, would you share your one point comment about today's discussion?
Today's discussions, I find it very informative, and I can relate my own feelings to what Ise-san just told us. Yes, like like the way children should be raised, as well as like parents' responsibility.
As a future mother yourself, of course.
Yes, yes. I should think about
that. But you know, Vietnamese people are very famous. That has most grit within the region.
That's amazing, within the region.
So you just need to recall your tradition.
Yes.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Vietnamese people are said have the strongest grit in the region.
In the region, yes.
Yes.
In the preface of Nihon no Kyoiku, Dr. Ise writes, selected few geniuses cannot make nationwide economic development. People from all walks of life must think and contribute proactively in their respective ways. Ise-san cites the word of Saicho, 8th century Tendai sector Buddhism founder, who said, Ichigo wo terasu kore takara nari. Literally, lighting up a corner, and this is the national treasure. Meaning each one of us becomes the candle and illuminates the place you're in. And if I put into another English phrase, can we say something like bloom where you are planted?
That's correct, yeah.
Exactly, spirit-wise. We hope our flame of candles become brighter by revisiting Japan Spirit.
And we have a great news for all the viewers of Japan Spirit. With the courtesy from Ise-san, we are giving away 4 copies of his book, and we will draw lottery for these books. And please email your name, your phone number, your address, as well as your comments about our program to this email address, gojapanspirit@ch-sakura.jp, and we look forward to your entry. Thank you for watching our program.
Okay, thank you very much.
And until next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.